Hi and welcome to all students of UPP 045 Information Skills. This is Mike Harris, the unit coordinator for this particular unit, and I'm welcome to all of you. As unit coordinator, I've decided to do small audio statements about the content for each week, really as a matter of outlining the most important points in the PowerPoints, and also to act as a kind of signpost of sorts. Also, I hope to highlight some questions that you may like to ask yourself at home in relation to some of the content as a way of exploring some of the material that we're looking at. Moving to the content for this week, I want to briefly go through the PowerPoint presentation. You might like to look at this as we're going along. I suspect though that this recording will be going faster than a general lecture. In other words, I'm hoping to condense this down to about between 5 and 10 minutes. Really, as I say, just outlining the most important points. Anyway, what we're looking at this week is where can I find information, and that's a big question when you first arrive at university. For most students, it's difficult to understand where they can get information immediately and for uses actually within the university setting. Most people struggle with this to begin with, hence we have this particular unit. If you go down to the session outline, which says the role and limits of Google and Wikipedia, UTAS library, and introduction to searching and scoping. Now, in terms of the latter one, really that is very much in your court. And my hope is that you'll begin to already look around the UTAS library system and begin to find where some information may or may not be available. The big question I asked this week relates to Google. And why is it that Google is not adequate or doesn't measure up in terms of academic work? For me, I simply pose the question, how many people look past the first page of results they get when they type in a search request in Google? Generally, most people don't. When we've done straw polls in class, we find that a lot of students simply sit on the first page of the search results and will only examine those. If we're lucky, they may go on to page 2. What this means is that there's a fairly limited scope of information that's looked at any one time. A philosophical question that might arise from this simply is that if we are looking at only a small range, a small band of information that is available through these vast search engines, is that actually detrimental to the overall acquisition of knowledge, or are we simply getting, rather repetitively, the same knowledge recycled by the same people who are doing the same sorts of searches? On slide 4, we have Google's response to this. And in their own words, they appear to be doing a fairly benign, innocuous thing. They simply want to give people the access to information that they want, and their whole philosophy is geared towards that goal. So they're actually meant to be serving us, so they say. Part of the issue for me, and it's not that I'm Google bashing, because I think Google actually serves its purpose well, is that its search results are related to popularity. So in other words, the sites that are visited the most by different people end up being the search results that come up. So whenever you search an item, the results that come up are the ones that have been accessed the most by other people who are searching for that type of information. Rather interestingly, and perhaps disturbingly, there's advertisers or advertisements that are connected with that, which are targeted to people looking for that type of information. Perhaps broader issues are, and certainly ones that concern me, is that Google collects data on individual users. Also, it's used as a platform for advertisers, and sadly it's a single hub for content. So in other words, that information comes through one particular area, through one arena, and that's it. Finally, of course, that the results themselves are engineered relating to, as I say, advertisers, etc., and popularity, but popularity is the big thing. The issue for me overall regarding data that's being collected, I'll give you 2 examples. One is that when I was looking for a whole range of stuff that I actually particularly wasn't interested in, but I thought, well, I'll test this theory about Google collecting information, I actually looked at 3 or 4 items that I would never have normally purchased, 2 of which were related to women, and found that almost immediately, certainly within 24 hours, I started getting emails in my Hotmail account which related to products that were connected with my search. For me, this was rather alarming in the sense that I was obviously being tracked. I had, I guess, a broader thing that happened in the UK when I was teaching over there was I had a range of my students looking up particular things on jihadism. I have set an essay. They had to actually go and do some research for and against justifications for terrorism, and within 24 hours I got literally a phone call from what I would consider to be the federal police in the UK, asking why all my students were looking at jihadism. So which meant, in a broader sense, which is not Google's fault necessarily, but just means that these things are being screened at two different levels. One is that Google's collecting information on you individually, but also that you're being watched in some way. Now, for me, that doesn't necessarily generate paranoia, but it just means that I'm aware of what I'm searching for, and also the repercussions in terms of these, particularly with Google, these products being rebounded back through my Hotmail account or other accounts that I might have. A rather intriguing thing about Google is that when you actually put in a search request, often the first search result that comes back is Wikipedia. Now, of course, this is based on popularity, as I've already established. But what's intriguing is that a lot of people, certainly past students of mine, have decided that Wikipedia seems to be a fairly good source of information. Now, I have real issues with this, and I'm going to let you read through some of the issues that I raise in the PowerPoint. However, the main one that I would raise is who's actually the authors, and is there any referencing, and if so, is it actually valid? Perhaps the most important thing I can say about Wikipedia is that often it's a good first port of call. In other words, you can find out or get at least an overview of a subject that you actually want to do some research into. So it's a good starting point, and that's probably about it. Perhaps the most important thing that I'll say today as we move towards better sources of information, and in answer to the actual original question, is that the UTAS library, both online and in person, of course, if you're attending, is the best place for information, particularly for use in academic work, i.e. for students, normally assignments. The reason it's a good place is that the material that actually is on the shelves or that's online has been reviewed, so it goes through a review process to actually see if it's appropriate for academic use. More than that, of course, is that the UTAS library particularly funds the acquisition of journal articles. Most of those articles are online, and that gives you a range of contemporary information, contemporary research, etc., on a particular topic. The reason that is good, of course, is that you've got up-to-date information, particularly if you're doing assessments. If you do have an opportunity to visit a UTAS library, by all means do it. I would argue too that public libraries are a good space as well. They often have access to a lot of material that you could otherwise not get. However, most of your work should go through the UTAS library. If you can't get it online, you can still get it in from other campuses, usually at a small fee, or if you're an attending student, I don't think you have to pay anything. However, having said that, most of the course materials that you will have received or that you'll actually get through the Milo system should cover at least the initial needs that you have for research. To conclude this rather short recording, I have to say that your first assignment relates to actually using the library system. So in other words, you're going to actually have to demonstrate that you have not only access to the library system but are able to get around it, retrieve information and actually record that information. And for me, that's a good thing, because actually it creates good practice in terms of your long-term life as a student. Finally, I have to apologise for any kind of interruptions and the rather stilted nature of this recording. I've had lots of different interruptions that have gone through this process. Also, I'm fairly new to this particular way of recording lectures, and so, as you can imagine, and with some minor embarrassment, you'll have to suffer these recordings. Anyway, hopefully they'll improve over time. Hope all goes well for the next week or two.